Hi, I'm Steve Proctor. We're talking about calipers for a few minutes. The basic types of calipers are very common. You have dials, digitals, and verniers. And the only difference between them usually is just how they're read. When you're looking at calipers, there's actually a very basic setup to them. You have a set of outside diameter jaws, inside jaws. Typically you're going to have a depth rod, and you're going to have a step measurement that can be used here. So you have lots of ability to use these throughout your inspection process. When you're using them, you're going to have to worry about making sure everything is clean, that there's no debris or dirt on your jaws, and this is going to make it easier to get a good, reliable measurement. When you take a measurement with an outside diameter, it's simply close it on your part and make the reading. Be sure that you're using consistent pressure and consistent force when pushing them together, simply because you can easily deform any part that you're working with, including deforming the caliper. You'll do the same thing with ID measurements. Simply go into your internal diameter, your internal measurement, and pull out. When you're working with steps, very easy. You're going to zero on your plate, and you'll notice the distance that happens between here and here is actually going to be measured on your dial face. So you can easily step up to a part, such as this other caliper, and take a measurement. You can also do the same thing with a depth rod. The depth rod comes from the bottom. You'll zero this, of course, on the plate just as you would anything else, and then come around to take a depth measurement. You can use this inside of a hole to take a particular step measurement, all sorts of applications you can make with that. The dial caliper, very easy to set your zero. When you're coming in to set your zero, simply turn the face. It doesn't matter where this dial is, that's a personal preference. If you like the needle to be over here at 9 o'clock, or in this case at 9 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, or at 3 o'clock, these are usually very easily adjusted depending on the manufacturer, but the location of the needle doesn't matter. What matters is when your jaws are closed, that your needle points to zero. You can do that by changing the dial. You're going to want to use a thumb wheel if you can. The thumb wheel is going to help you give a little more accurate pressure, or a little more precise pressure each time. Coming in, it's very easy to slam things shut, whereas with the wheel, you're going to be a little better off. What you're looking for on a digital, very similar to the dial, all the same features, depth rod, a step measurement, OD, and ID jaws. The difference is you're reading out in a digital LCD panel. These panels are going to be anywhere from 3 to 4 digits. You're going to look for here the same kind of setup. You're going to want to not put too much pressure. You'll just continue to change your measurement. Same as when you're pulling out. Too much pressure is going to change the measurement. It's actually going to deform the caliper, and it's going to give you an unreliable measurement. You can use these throughout the length of the jaws. As we look to calibrate them, we're actually making sure that these jaws are parallel, so a measurement here will be the same as a measurement here. You can usually get into tiny spaces where these are usually relieved on most models. You can set this as well at 0 wherever you like. You can come out and get comparison measurements by setting to 0 and then moving in and out from there. Most commonly, people will usually just zero them on the jaws and then take measurements as needed. These also have the added benefit of being able to go from metric to English measurements back and forth quite easily. No matter where you are, simply press the button and now you have a measurement that's converted for you. Verniers, very similar again, but are going to range in size and going to range in how you're going to read it. You're going to read this by comparison of the vernier on the front to the vernier and the rule on the frame itself. It's not a terribly difficult thing to do, but what you're looking for is what is lining up. What's lining up on your scales and how's that working? Typically verniers are not going to have a depth rod. You'll notice this one's missing one. And they typically also don't have a step measurement. This isn't any real problem with them, but simply because they typically are larger and a little older in design. When it comes to the most common errors that people make with calipers, the most common one I see is usually squeezing too hard. It is really easy to make a deformed measurement simply by pushing the caliper in farther. Very easy to see on a soft material like my finger, but even on steel, the steel won't deform, but the caliper will start to deform. What you'll find is the jaws, rather than being parallel, will start to become unparalleled. And therefore, we're going to get erroneous readings for our stuff. So we're going to make sure that we're using the same amount of force and a consistent amount of force. When it comes to cleaning them, you're going to want to use just, again, a mild cleaner. You're not going to use alcohol or solvents on any of the plastic faces of the gauges. It's going to cause a problem with fogging and issues with reading it in the future. So just a mild cleaner to make sure that you've got everything cleaned off of them, and then making sure that you've got, again, your measurement surfaces and your inside. So the inside of your outside jaws here, your bases, and your steps. Making sure those are clean, you want to make sure you get reliable measurements each time. And again, this goes for all of them. And when it comes to storage, again, most of them are going to be supplied with a case. I highly recommend you use the case as much as possible. It's going to protect them from dings on the jaws, on the jaw tips, and problems of wear on the back end that are going to cause issues with your measurements. All of those things are repairable, but can be expensive to repair.